Hello there, and welcome to Third Lining It, where I, as a third line, talk about what not to do and why not to do it through the lens of the human design system. And so if you've been following along, you'll notice that this chart we have here on my left is actually the first chart of a projector that we're dealing with. For you see, this chart does not have a motor, which is either this sacral center, this root center, this emotional center, or this ego center, defined to a motor, or rather to the throat. You see, one of those four motors, if it has a way to connect and define to the throat, that would make a manifestor. However, this person has an undefined sacral, and they have motors defined that do not touch the throat. So we know right away this is a projector type. And so we know right away this person does not know when enough is enough. This is the fundamental theme of this undefined sacral center. Unlike the previous two charts, this person does not have an inner response system that is consistent and regular in its function. This person doesn't have this inner yes or this inner no that they can trust for every decision that shows up, which life is attracting towards them. Instead, they have a very unique and special relationship to vision, to being able to see things in a different way. For you see, this projector type was first born on the year 1781 when we had this nine-centered human mutation occur. And so this person does not know when enough is enough. They're a projector. This element of seeing allows them to see into what's called the magnetic monopole of another person. And so this magnetic monopole essentially holds together the hologram of separation. This idea that you and I are distinct and different people, and we have different locations in space-time, and we move in different ways. The orchestrator and the driver of that function is the magnetic monopole. And so what makes projectors different is that they can see into the monopole, the very dynamics of reality. And if they can see so clearly, if they are clearly able to recognize the truth from what is not true, then it results in success. The fundamental signature frequency of a projector is success, quite literally, in every aspect of life, in any aspect of life. What they bring is success to the entire human experiential way, to our process as humanity. Projectors represent the culmination of that and the potential for us to recognize things that have gone unrecognized for at least 100 years. Ever since 1781, we have had new potential that has gone unrecognized. And it is through the wisdom of projectors that we have the chance to see it. And that leads to success in the natural frequency signature for this being. However, this is third lining it after all. I can't focus on the positive and the beautiful the whole time, as I love to do. I have to be able to communicate what is negative and what is not true, the falsehoods that hold us back from embracing our truth and realizing something brand new. And the bitterness of a projector is unlike anything else. These people can find bitterness along the road to success. These people can rise up in the hierarchies of business and corporate structures in a way that is astonishing to me as a generator, because it's like they're pointing out bitterness everywhere. They're saying, well, that's wrong because of this. Well, this could be better, and that could be better, and this can be better, because they can see, and they're bitter because it upsets them, the ways in which life is not naturally conductive towards success in our human realm, because we become so mental about things. And so this bitterness becomes this characteristic of them that is, that can still allow for some potential benefit, and yet it's so terrifyingly heartbreaking in truth. For this person, as we said before, with this undefined sacral center, this person does not have any way to know when enough is enough until they recognize the harm that it can cause from going too far, pushing too much, needing more than what is correct. And the thing about that is attenuated by this root center down here at the bottom that is also undefined. And since this root center is undefined, we know that this person is under immense pressure from their mind to be busy. You can't sit still, you can't wait around, you got to get rid of the pressure. Somebody has an expectation from you, somebody wants something from you. I need to do this right now and get this accomplished so that it's finally done. And the joke of this is that the only way in which they can truly alleviate the pressure when they're constantly under this need to eliminate it is to die. You see, the mind will never stop thinking. The mind will never stop with its process. And it's not about making it stop. It's about accepting that what the mind thinks has nothing to do with telling the body what to do. And when the mind is thinking in a way that results in the mind telling the body what to do, we not only know this person doesn't know when enough is enough, they're also going to be extremely busy under a lot of pressure to get that done right now. And whenever that's done, it's the next thing is done right now, the whole time. And you know what? There's one more undefined center here. This open crown center, open head center. The function of this center is to provide pressure to the mind, to the conceptualization process, to the thinking process. And the fundamental theme is inspiration. So what is inspiring you? And in the not self with this undefined head center, what matters to this person, what's going to occupy their time, what's interesting to them, is specifically what does not matter. If you try to bring something to them that matters, you know what happens? Is that they are far too busy with not knowing when enough is enough, trying to alleviate the pressure that they feel from the expectations and the spiritual pressure of life even. For you see, this person is a 6-2 profile. That means this person is a role modeling hermit. The program, essentially life itself, has immense demands from them. Anybody with this 6-line profile, that could be a 6-2, or it could be a 6-3, or a 3-6, or a 4-6, rather 4-6. For in the 4-6, the fourth line is in the conscious personality, and the sixth line is in the unconscious. That's where the deep, mutative, changing, role modeling pressure is. And within this system, it's a sixth line on the personality. So it's conscious access to this circuit level potential of awareness. You see, the sixth line is very different from all the other lines. Instead of being absorbed in its own individual personal process, like 1, 2, and 3, instead of being interested in how it can opportunistically influence its friends, like the 4, instead of receiving all the positive expectation from strangers, like the 5, the 6 is the role model, the true, genuine human role model of what is potential for someone in this life today. And the thing is, the program, life itself, expects and demands from them integrity, to have right action, to be able to be correct within themselves and to honor their own inner sense of truth. And so for this 6th line, there is the demand of being a role model and honoring that inner truth. If they do not do that, then they become a hypocrite. And the thing about hypocrisy is, in the program now, with these 6 lines, hypocrisy is not something that is supported. And so people with this 6th line in their profile, this projector here, if they're not waiting for the invitation, if they're not trusting their emotional system and giving time to wait for clarity on decisions, then essentially what they're doing is they're listening to the pressures of their mind, which is made up of fundamentally not knowing when enough is enough, being busy over absolutely nothing and anything about things that don't matter. So they don't know when enough is enough. They're really busy dealing with it, and it's only about things that don't matter if they're listening to their mind and they're not waiting for the invitation. And that hypocrisy can kill a 6th line early. They can die early because essentially for 90,000 years before 1781, that was the farthest we could go evolutionarily, was hypocrisy of do as I say and not as I do. This was the farthest extent we could reach until that moment of shifting where receptivity was reborn into our human genetic structure. In 1781, when the projector was born with this capacity for receptivity to see into the mechanics of reality in a way unlike others. And it comes out from the wisdom, for you see, they do not know when enough is enough. And eventually that becomes the wisdom of knowing exactly when enough is enough, why enough is enough, and how enough is enough. But at first, well, you see, it's got to be pushed to the very limit. They're a 6-2 profile, and this the second line unconscious gives a powerful natural determination towards their own ability to perform. They simply do things. They don't know why or how or what. It just happens. And that 6th line, under that deep mutative pressure, is going to be pulled into that undefined sacral of not knowing when enough is enough. And now, what are the themes that are consistent in this life? What is going to be exploring not knowing when enough is enough and being very busy this whole time about things that don't matter? Well, the first thing we see is that we have ajna, to throat, to self, defined primarily in unconscious. So what this person has to say and has to think about things, they're not primarily accessible to it. Things come out of their mouth and they don't know why they said that, because they have an unconscious direction in life that can communicate itself through logical ideals that has opinions backed up by details. And those details are fixed. That direction in life is fixed. And the thing is because it's fixed, because it's fixed, they think they can get away with using their thoughts for their own benefit, and that's the fundamental misuse of the mind. Your mind can't tell your body what to do. Your mind doesn't comprehend reality in a way that is clean from its own limitations. You see, your mind can only see reality from its limitation. And when that mind is not ruling the decision-making of the life, then the mind is free to give clear, crystal, clean outer authority. And sadly, we know that's not what this person is dealing with until they consciously engage with the experiment. And so even though they have this consistent sense of direction in life, they have this fixed ability to communicate with this 16th gate hanging, meaning they're willing to try things out. So they might not know what's going on in their mind, but they're willing to identify with something to try and carry that momentum forward as an experiment. And on the other half of this split definition, we see the 3740 and the 2644. This 3740 gives this drive to be a part of community and to be a piece of a much bigger picture. Whereas this 2644 brings this element of communication that is able to speak to the immune system of another person and convince them they need something that's truly good for them. That's in the true self. In the not self, this person has the capacity to belong to an organization or a tribe or a family, this 3740, that is willing to misuse, abuse, manipulate other people for the benefit of their own tribe. And that's because they're too busy with things that don't matter, because they don't know when enough is enough and they've got to relieve the pressure. How are they going to do that? Well, you know what? They're not going to wait for the invitation. They're going to make things happen, and they're not going to wait for clarity. They're an emotionally defined being, and this 3740 gives a tribal ratchet wave. This click, 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 boom! For you see, this connects us to our tribal ancestors, wherein if a neighboring tribe would have bothered you, it wasn't that big of a deal until it happened again and again and again and again, and all of a sudden you're so angry that your family ends up killing one of them to send the message of, hey, that's not okay. And with this 2644, this is a huntering element. This is the ability to kill fish, rather not fish. Primarily, Actually, no, I believe it is fish. It is fish and fowl. So it is the birds in the sky that are flying and the fish underwater. This is what gives a relationship to not only be consuming those, but to manipulate those populations. And in the not self, that person is going to be manipulating other people with this same fear. For you see, the 44 is this fear of extinction. Not just like I'm going to die, but we're all going to die if we don't do something about this. So this person's under a lot of pressure. You know, they need to hold the community together by abusing other communities and expressing that, well, in this perspective, because my mind is defined and I have this logic, there's actually a good reason for it. We have to care for each other. We must survive. And yet they'll never have access to their true intelligence without waiting for the invitation, for they are a projector. And you know what? They're a split definition. So there's one thing right here that sticks out to me and one thing right here. These are the two bridging gates. It appears to only be these two. For you see, a bridging gate will connect this definition structure with this definition structure. So the 21 is the gate of control. The 48 is this gate of depth. And so the number one most important thing for this person, the way in which they can alleviate all the pressure and get through what does or doesn't matter and finally learn what enough is enough, so they think, is through controlling things with their depth that they don't have. You see, I need to have control over the situation. I need to be able to share with you the deep importance and the meaning behind everything that I'm saying. And the thing is they don't have control. They don't have the depth that actually allows that to be a true, consistent element in their life. So maybe when a transit comes along or another person comes along that can bring that element of control or brings that element of depth, then they will feel more whole within themselves because they've been bridged on the inside by an external force. And it's not reliable. Yet they will continuously be busy over things that don't matter because they don't know when enough is enough to keep that person around or those people, those forces around as much as possible to see the importance of those things, whether they can even recognize they're there. It could simply be a planetary transit that lasts for a few years and suddenly they feel like they're in control of life and their things are going well. There's a transit in there that gives them control, that gives them their depth, and they're a whole being and it's all good. And then that transit leaves and suddenly all of the control falls out of their fingertips. They suddenly witness everything crumble apart and it's as if they don't have access to the depth that they had that was able to control and hold things together. And they won't know why. They'll have no idea. They'll think it's maybe their fault or somebody else's fault. When in fact, mechanically speaking, using the physics of reality, as I see it through the human design system, it's simply because this person did not wait for the invitation. They didn't honor their strategy as a projector. For you see, right here in the G center lies something called that magnetic monopole, which I mentioned earlier, that which holds together this hologram of separation that the projector can see into. And you see, the thing is transference is part of the function of this magnetic monopole. It's part of life. It's necessary. It's important. And a little bit goes a long way. And you see, I call it like salt. When you're pulled into the not self, it's as if salt overtakes you. You see, the thing about salt is that a little bit in a dish, and it makes the flavor pop, and it really brings it to life. And yet nobody wants to eat a handful of salt. Spoonful after spoonful after spoonful of salt. Nobody wants to do that. They know it's going to be bad for their health. And yet energetically, that's what they're doing by letting their mind tell their body what to do. They're engaging in this overproduction of energies that don't belong, this obsessive compulsive pull into black holes of ignorance. For you see, that's what I call an undefined center in the body graph. These are black holes of ignorance until they become wisdom. For you see, this is the fundamental thing this mind is interested in, finding the control and the depth to alleviate the pressure about something that doesn't matter, because they don't know when enough is enough. So they will keep going again and again and again and getting away with what they can get away with. For you see, the 6-line profile, under all that mutative pressure, it's not a personal pressure so much as it's a collective, it's a humanitarian pressure. It's a species-wide pressure that they're under. And so it goes as far as it possibly can until it can go no farther. It discovers its own unique truth, and then it lives it or not. And if this person can wait for the invitation as a projector, because the thing is their ability to see into that magnetic monopole gives them deep, unique insight. And if they share what they see with somebody else without having that invitation or that recognition first, then it will never land, ever, period. That's how it works. However, if they wait for the invitation, there is the chance that it can land. There is this opportunity that allows the other to recognize within you the fact that you've already recognized something grand. And then they invite it out from you, and then they're ready to receive it. Whereas if this projector tries to manifest it, if they try to go out there, going door to door, talk to every single person and trying to spread this message, they're going to have so many doors slammed on their face. Simply because it was not invited. It was not the correct time. They were not ready to give the information because they were still looking at life through a backwards lens. This lens of my mind is here to tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to succeed. And you know, for 90,000 years, that was the way. It simply is not anymore. This person needs to wait for emotional clarity. They have a defined solar plexus right here. And this solar plexus means that there is no truth in the now. There is only relative clarity. However, it's defined to the spleen, and the spleen is right now only. It sends its message once, and that's it. It might be quiet, it might be very loud, but it won't argue with you about it. And so what happens in the not self when they're overridden by pressure to get things done and the need for control, what happens is that splenic system sends pings constantly to the emotional system, and it's feeding information to it. And in that not self structure, it's feeding pings of that was wrong, that's not good, let's get out, go, don't do this, go, move, don't do that. It's giving those signals, and they're building up in that emotional system, and they're not properly being handled. They're not being waited for clarity. They're allowed to bubble up and boil over and simmer into all this kind of nasty nonsense because they don't know when enough is enough. They're just going to keep simmering, and they're just going to keep pushing because they have a defined ajna. You know, they can see the pattern and they know they fit into it. And once they wait for the invitation, they'll have the chance. And yet until then, it'll be continuously occupied with things that don't matter, trying to get the thing done without ever knowing when enough is enough. What a horror that is. This person has so much wisdom. They could be bringing health to other people in their community while truly participating as a leader of logic. Somebody who can see into their projection of the future and give a direction to others that allows us to go forward in a good way. And yet in the not self, it'll never be in a good way. Not for them and not for other people. And I think that's about all I have on this chart for the moment. It's difficult for me to focus in on the negative and to really dive into that notion of how horrible our mind can abuse our bodies. When I know how much nicer the experience of life can be when we trust the body, when we let life live itself. How freeing it is for the mind, and how relaxing it is for the body, how satisfying, how successful, how peaceful, and how surprising it is to truly see with your own eyes. And with that, I hope you're having a good day. Bye for now.